Herzlich willkommen zu femalforce. Mein Name ist Homeira Leopoldsberger und ich möchte hier über einen etwas anderen Feminismus sprechen und euch einladen, mit mir auszutauschen und euch mitzuteilen. Die Meinung aller Geschlechter ist hier erwünscht. Mein Podcast soll Mut machen, andere Perspektiven aufzeigen und euch ganz deutlich machen, dass es ganz viele Powerfrauen gibt. Ich freue mich sehr auf dich und dein Feedback. Alle Infos findest du in der Podcast-Beschreibung. Schön, dass du da bist. Hello and welcome to femalforce. This episode will be in English because my guest is not that fluent in German. She's an Afghan woman born and raised in Afghanistan. She is 32 years old and has a very exciting biography. She has her PhD in law and does her postdoc at the University of Passau. She lives in Passau since August 2021. Her name is Dr.Suhailah Akbari, and I'm very pleased to have her here today. Dr. Akbari, welcome.
Thank you very much, Homeira, for having me. That's an honor.
Oh, it's an honor for me. Thank you very much. Dr. Akbari, how was it to be born and raised as a woman in Afghanistan?
A very difficult question, I would say, to start with. It's difficult to be a girl in Afghanistan, to be an educated girl, to be raised in conservative societies in Afghanistan, where I come from. From where should I start? How difficult it is. From having not an equal right to your brother or other male member of your society, your family, or to having less privileges in terms of competition, your appearance at a public life, and your engagement in civic, political, cultural, and other social activities at a society. Even that's so funny, even in terms of what you eat and how much you eat, it's not equal, right?
Like what do you mean by that? Yeah, that's interesting.
When we talk about how is it to be a girl in Afghanistan, to be raised as a girl, like inequality comes in all forms. Even at the very basic, funny way of receiving food and nutrition. Like you're a girl, maybe you should eat less than your brother. Or less than a boy. Or if you receive a cookie as a kid, okay, your brother receives 2 cookies, 2 chocolates, and you receive 1 chocolate because you're a girl and he is a boy. We have seen that around families. So that's funny, a funny way of giving an example, but that's how it's treated already in an Afghan society in remote areas. And we're not even thinking about how the situation is for a girl to be raised now in Afghanistan. We're talking about the Republic regime.
That's exactly what I wanted to talk about, besides the Taliban and the political circumstances where there are, because nobody really knows and can feel how it is. If you talk about these candy and cookies, nobody can imagine why is that happening? Why is a girl less worth than a boy? Could you explain that to us?
I guess that is the, I wouldn't say a cultural norm, but rather a traditional norm in way of people, for example, for decades or maybe for centuries, that in girls have been considered lower than men in boys. That would start with, for example, share of food and cookies and candies to all other fundamental rights around the families and around the society. So that is the general perception of seeing women in that context in Afghanistan.
It is always very difficult to compare, but if I look at my life, it was extremely comfortable from a political point of view. I lived in peace. I always had access to education, was always safe and sound. And you managed to have 2 children. You have 2 daughters. You are married and you work on your academic career. Where do you get your strength and willpower from?
The strength and power actually comes from all these inequalities and injustice that girls and women in Afghanistan have seen throughout their lives. Me and a living example of that. Every time I saw an injustice, inequality, less treatment than boys and men in my society, starting from my family, then I was like, no, I have to work harder and I have to prove everyone wrong, that no, we are actually equal. We could do great things. We do have great capabilities and skills to contribute around the family, around the society, as much as men do. And at some points, maybe even better and greater than men and than boys, giving the opportunities for us. And I guess when I reflect on everything, maybe that strength comes from inequality.
So it's your anger
from within the society.
Yeah. That the girls are equally thinking and they are equally intelligent, and it's really funny to say that, but of course, that is, that's a fact.
Exactly. And that also feeling a kind of a burden in my shoulder that, okay, we have to lay the path for other goals in future. We have to lay the foundation for other goals to rise and to fight for their rights and to speak up for their rights and desires. After 2001, probably I was not the generation. The generation before me, my sisters and other girls before me, they had to stand up for us. And that is what we learned, to continue standing up for the next generation of girls and women in the country. For my daughter, for example, today. That was also a responsibility that we had to be strong. Yes. We had to use every little opportunity to prove ourselves and to demand a standing and a position for girls and women in our society.
Right. Now, today you are a role model for so many women and, of course, for your daughters. But who was your role model? You just mentioned your sisters or other women?
Now I'm really stuck in answering this question because I cannot recall any specific role around my family or around the community that I was living in. If I'm not recalling, maybe that there was maybe no role model. Okay, I could give an example, my mother, but the context we're discussing, maybe not. Yes, my older sister, she went to school, she went to university before me, left home for Kabul to study pharmacy and later medicine. But then she could be somehow my role model, but then the nature of the fight that we have had have been different. Me choosing law, really going into women's rights, human rights, rule of law, injustice, that was something that naturally was in me. And I think I didn't learn it from anywhere, at least in my adolescent times. Maybe I had fictitious role models from books.
Right.
Like,
what did you read?
For example, Michelle Obama used to...
Michelle Obama.
For example, Michelle Obama during my high school times and later on during the early years of university time, Michelle Obama was my role model. Like, I love to listen to her speeches. Like, there is no speech of her that I haven't watched several times and listened to several times.
Right.
And because I used to be, I was raised as a religious Muslim girl. Our society was, our family was. So I used to also read traditional Islamic books on women's rights.
Yes.
And that I can surely say that the daughter of the Prophet, used to be my role model during my high school education, because whatever teaching of Prophet that I was reading from his daughter, Fatima,
yes,
that was full of knowledge, full of enlightenment for women, and a lot of women rights values in them. And then I would compare them with the realities of the Islamic, let's say, society that we have.
Yes.
And those did not match. So I was like, no, these women are my role models. They're the path for me. And that's what like a Muslim woman could be and should be. And we could do that.
Right. It's very interesting to say that actually the Islam is one of the religions who fought for women's rights from the very beginning. And what patriarchal societies and systems did with this, it's just insane. It's inhumane. It's insane. And we have to suffer from that. Not only, of course, you cannot compare the situation in Afghanistan with the Western societies, but still, we suffer from patriarchal systems here too. And for me, it's very interesting for me to answer the question, how is it for you to live in Germany now? How do you feel?
If I'm honestly speaking, the past year has been full of trauma, because I was so extremely traumatized when I left Kabul, because the nature of my leaving Kabul was not a simple thing, a very adventurous one. I was stranded at the airport when the Taliban took over Kabul with my two daughters. So for the past year, I have been constantly struggling with the trauma. I used to torture myself over the past, especially women and girls, and by watching them, by reading them, I used to torture myself a lot. And then not only I did not stop doing that, I would dig more and more into that. By more watching, by more reading and listening, I used to get lost in myself. But now I'm seeing that, no, I have a family to take care of. I have two daughters to raise the way that I should raise them. So I'm trying to recover from that. Maybe I cannot recover, but at least I have to find a way to manage that, to channel that into something positive. So I'm doing a bit better these days. That's why I'm doing good in my postdoc project, and that's why I'm doing better around my family life. But overall, if you ask me what I do, I just continue doing research and looking after kids, taking care of the family. I feel safe, at least. I feel safe here in Germany.
Okay. But you're still suffering.
I can raise my voice. That is, of course I do. But the good thing is, in Germany, I do have the tools to raise my voice. I can write in Twitter. I can raise my voice in social medias. I can appear in interviews like yours, for example. And at least that little part that I have to do in defending women's rights in Afghanistan, I have the platform to do it from here. And that's actually, at this time of crisis, a huge thing to do. Which in Afghanistan, women and girls barely have.
Yes. Dr. Akbari, if you would describe your feelings concerning Afghanistan right now, is it more hope or fear?
At least for some time, for a short time, it's full of fear and disappointment. Because I know that the Taliban will not disappear soon. I can recall that in 1996, Taliban came with no modern military technology and equipment. And the regime lasted for more than 5 years, from 1996 to 2001. when I was a kid. And with nothing, they lasted for 5 years. Imagine that now they have everything. And unfortunately, partially, the indirect support of international community. They have the military equipments of the international community that were in Afghanistan for 20 years. Everything that was built up over the past 20 years is now left with the Taliban. So they're much more powerful. And the fear that they may rule longer, like 10 years, God forbidden, or 15 years, seems true. And that's where I get my atmosphere. Because Taliban, okay, they could rule for 20 years for the rest of their life in Afghanistan. But the thing is, will they bring positive changes to their misogynistic policies toward women? Would they allow girls and women to obtain education, to go to work, to appear in public life? My hope is zero. Because during 1996 to 2001, they constantly say that we will reopen girls' school. We are working on this policy. We are working on that policy. We will open the university, the school soon to girls. But it never happened. For 5 years, it never happened. And I think it will not again. Because you see, that's the same Taliban, even worse than 1996, the Taliban now are. So it's fear, it's disappointment.
It's more fear right now. Okay. Dr. Akbari, I saw you live. I met you in Passau, and I just thank you so much. I'm in awe to see you, what you have achieved. I thank you for your courage. I thank you for being a role model. And I wish you all the best and the strength and the love you need to have a very good life here in Germany and with your daughters and your husband. And I hope to talk to you very soon.
Thank you very much, Homeira, for having me. And you are also a strong voice nowadays. Thank you. That event in Passau, you were an active part of that. So I thank you too for raising your voice for the rights of women in Afghanistan.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too, have a great day. Thank you for having me.
Bye. Danke, dass du heute dabei warst. Falls du ein Wunschthema hast oder dich austauschen möchtest, sende mir gerne eine E-Mail. Die Infos findest du in den Shownotes. Bis zum nächsten Mal.